Okay, so I've answered that urgent phone call. And now I can speak with you about the move from the Vedic worldview into the Upanishadic breakthrough, right? Which has been the content that you've been studying over the last few weeks, right? So you'll recall that you started out examining the Vedic worldview, the worldview that those Aryan invaders, as they're sometimes called, though that's a misnomer, right, brought with them when they arrived in northern India in about somewhere in the middle of the second millennium before the Common Era, right? So we're talking over 3,000 years ago. They brought with them a language. They brought with them a scripture in that language, which eventually became known as the Vedas. They brought with them a hierarchical social structure, which ultimately became the caste system. They brought with them a warrior sensibility. They brought with them a nature polytheism, which placed a significant emphasis on masculine gods, right? And they seemingly did a pretty good job of supplanting whatever was indigenous to northern India when they arrived. They set up shop in northern India, of course, right? And they settled in. And one of the things that started to develop and blossom after they settled in was that the prevalence and dominance, right, of the priestly caste, right? You know from your studies that the rituals that kind of bridge the gap between the Vedic people and their gods were extraordinarily important, because if you wanted anything to go well, right, if you wanted a battle to go well, you wanted a harvest to go well, you wanted your society to flourish, right, you needed the gods on your side. And so the ritual was the medium for getting their attention and getting them to help you out, right? And in particular, the fire ritual was central to this whole dynamic, right? And these rituals, right, became extremely elaborate, right, and highly specialized. And the only people who could do them were the priests, were the Brahmins, right, who had that secret power, right, the Brahminical power, the power of the voice, the power of the mantra, the power of the hymn, of the spell, of the particular incantation, right, that would make the ritual work properly, right? Those rituals became extremely elaborate. It was an intensely intricate practice, right, that was carried out by the priests. The thing was, no matter how powerful you were, right, as a king or a warrior or something like that, you had to have the gods on your side. So you had to have the priests on your side, and you had to enlist the expertise of the priests to make things work, right? So all of that, that's just a summation. All of that should be familiar to you. And you read some of the excerpts from the Vedas, right? And you saw how the Vedic people praised their gods, right? And in Shattuck, she describes the rituals and all that kind of stuff. So that's in the background. Now, eventually we know that some people started to get a little bit fed up with that, or they were searching for deeper answers, right? They were resistant to this whole, nature polytheism, the dominance of the priests. They thought there must be more to things than these, rituals that went on for days, in some cases weeks, in some cases months. All of these priests running around. By the way, they were paid for by their patrons, right? So they were getting paid to do this stuff. So, nothing ever bad happens when religion and money get intertwined, right? It was an environment that was kind of ripe for reform, shall we say, right? So what were the insights that started to come out of this period? It was a transformation, not just an overturning, but a transformation of the Vedic worldview, right? So the first question on the first option, right, on your paper assignment is really it's about all of that, right? It's about the movement from the Vedic worldview, right, the classic Vedic worldview, to the ideas that we find expressed in the Upanishads, right? And you'll recall that I posted this PowerPoint, right, which is designed to get at that issue, right? Here are the key concepts, right? Brahman, Atman, which many of you seem to have grasped. It's a very difficult thing to hold on to, but conceptually, but a lot of you seem to understand the basic idea that Atman and Brahman, according to the Upanishadic sages, are two sides of the same coin. The underlying reality that is pervasive out here, that is also pervasive in here, in the Atman, in the self, right? When we recognize that continuity, we understand the nature of ultimate reality, right? At the same time, the Upanishadic sages developed, came up with, discovered this basic dynamic, right? This basic kind of hardwiring to the way that the cosmos works, and it's linked to human existence and human moral behavior, right? Namely, the concept of samsara, right, which tells us that we're in a cycle of birth and rebirth, that the Atman continues to cycle through many, many lifetimes, right? And the idea that where we go in that long journey, it's dictated by our actions or karma, right? Good actions dictate a better rebirth. Bad actions dictate a lesser rebirth, right? The crazy thing is, right, as soon as the Upanishadic sages discover samsara and karma, they realize how burdensome it is, because we've been around and around and again millions and millions of times, and as high as we can get on the scale, right, of samsara, right, we can attain the highest level of existence, right, within the cycle, which might be a kind of divine status, right? We're always going to get tripped up by some past karma that brings us back down again. And so we've traversed the scale over and over again for so many lifetimes, right? So they immediately formulate the idea that there is liberation and escape. For the vast majority of people within the tradition, as it develops, right, their main goal is to attain a better rebirth in the next lifetime, right? For the specialized few, right, they recognize that there is a bigger goal, right, which is moksha, or liberation from the cycle, right? So all of those ideas, right, are formulated, they are discovered, right, via the experience, right, that's captured in the Upanishadic texts, right? And here, in this chart, right, I have attempted to trace or tell a story about how ideas from the Vedas, from the old Vedic worldview, result in some of the ideas that we see in the Upanishads, right? So this gives you a bit of a roadmap if you're working with prompt number one. It's up to you, however, right, to provide concrete textual evidence, right, that fleshes out that story, right, depending on what you want to focus on, right? So that's the big idea behind prompt number one. Right. The second prompt, which I just dispelled here. Let's see. The second prompt here we go. The second prompt has to do with, it's a related issue, but it really tries to get you to focus on the language, right, that the Upanishadic authors are using, right, to try to trace in careful detail how they used language, images, metaphors, and other kinds of linguistic devices to try to capture the kind of experience or concepts that they were putting across, right? We know that they are trying to capture something that is very difficult to capture in rational, standard, conventional language. So they used a variety of devices to do so, right? So an obvious example, right? There's the passage from the Chandogya Upanishad, right, where the father is trying to talk to his son Shvetaketu, right, about what it's like, right, for Atman to merge into Brahman, or as he keeps saying, that is you, right? This is what you really are, right? Your true essential nature is like this, right? And one of the classic examples, of course, is the river running into the ocean, right? This is one of the questions on the reading and the test, right? And most of you totally got this, right? That's an obvious example. There are plenty of other examples, right, where the Upanishadic sages are trying to use kind of tricks in language, right, to point to the kind of experience they're having and the kind of concepts that they have discovered. So that's what the second question is all about, right? You probably want to focus, if you choose that option, focus on 2 or 3 specific examples, and you're always better off working on something in careful detail, right? Working on specific examples in careful detail rather than generalizing across the top, right? So quote your section of the text, engage in careful textual analysis to show what strategies they're using, right? The last one, right, is something that that Chaddock comments on, right, but it's again a related issue, right? The status of the Upanishadic sage and the Upanishadic recommendation that people withdraw and renounce, that they, instead of continuing to invest, right, in society, that they actually withdraw from it and they renounce the expectations of society, right? What are some of the examples of that in the Upanishads, right? How did these sages step away from conventional Vedic society and recommend a different path? It's a classic example, right, in one of your excerpts where the text is talking about the status of the gods, right? What do the gods think about people dropping out of society and discovering ultimate reality, that Brahman is the ultimate reality? They're not happy about it, right? Because they're getting trumped, as it were, right, by that kind of insight. They are, who needs them? Or people are them, or, people become divine by understanding their true nature, right, if the Upanishads are correct. So that's kind of a tension, right? That's kind of a tension between normal Vedic structures, nature polytheism, and what the Upanishadic sages are discovering. So what are a few examples of that, right? And what in general would you say about that kind of move, right? Is it a really indeed a breakthrough, a revolutionary move, or is there something maybe a little bit dangerous about it? Something a little bit risky about a society allowing its members to go off into the woods and bail out, right, on their family relationships, right? Like the one sage Yajnavalkya does to his wives, right? That's a concrete example, right, of what this is about. Sages saying, if I focus on myself, I am also focusing on you because we are all of the same nature / Atman. Sounds nice, but what it means in practice, of course, is that he's walking away from his spouses, right? He's saying goodbye, right? So that's what I mean. There are some examples where you can explore that kind of edginess, right, that's on display in the Upanishadic texts, in the excerpts that you have, right? So I just wanted to walk you through those options, maybe give you a little bit of guidance there. Here are 2 things, right? Make sure that you cite and quote your sources, Shattuck, and of course the primary sources, Vedic texts, right? Vedic excerpts and Upanishadic excerpts, right? Do not paraphrase, don't speak in general about them, definitely go into them, analyze them, draw upon specific quotations, specific evidence to make your case, right? And second, make sure that you are making a case, right? Your paper should, at the beginning, establish a general argument, a general thesis in response to the prompt, and the rest of the paper is providing evidence to support that claim. All right. Well, good luck. If you have any questions or you want me to have a look at a chunk of your paper before the Friday midnight deadline, I'd totally be fine with that. Or if you have any questions, feel free to drop me an email. Okay? All right, I hope that's helpful. I look forward to reading them. And see you soon.